Welcome to Operation Unbridled Truths. Your mission, autism.
Real.
Hi, everyone. It's me, Samuel Sternberg, joined by my buddies, Defining Disney, aka Trace and Chandler of Sunnyland Productions.
Hello.
We're joined with Bill and Bob, creators of the Ghost and Molly McGee. Say hi.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
We've brought you here to basically talk about June Chen, autism representation. How early on did you know that you wanted to include an autistic character in the Ghost and Molly McGee?
So as I recall it was a suggestion that came from Disney, but we and the entire writing team leapt at the opportunity. They were really pleased with the representation we'd done in the first season, all the representation we had on the LGBTQ spectrum, and the cultural stuff we had. And they were wondering, was there something we could do with autism? And we knew that we were going to have this Chen family come in, and it was like, that is exactly the kind of thing that would give the little sister, June, something to dig our hooks into.
I'm glad that you mentioned the other Chens in this, because that actually leads perfectly into question number 2. How would June have reacted to her brother being the new chairman in season 3? Would she have played any role in getting Ollie's memories back, or did y'all figure that out?
She would basically say, something's off with Ollie, right? She would notice that something was
a little blunter than Ollie would be about it.
Ollie would probably make some excuse of why he forgot something, and Molly might just kind of want to believe him about that or buy into it.
I kind of almost wonder if there would be a moment in a near finale episode where June would list moment by moment everything that was off on Ollie and increasing weird things. She's like, no, it's been a pattern that I've been noticing since episode 1, essentially. Molly would probably be in denial, I think, for a good chunk of it, and then be like, okay.
Definitely.
What is that argument, June? Thank you.
Another thing y'all might not have gotten too far with, but I remember Bob mentioned it during the first Operation Amplification stream. Bob, you mentioned a June A-plot episode being planned for season 3. Were any specific ideas drafted up for that?
Boy.
But can I remember them now?
Yeah, a little time is dropped, and I'm trying to remember.
I know we had plans to do an episode that was very June focused.
Yes.
Maybe almost a day in the life of June. But boy, specifics I cannot remember.
Hey, June, looks like Darryl's about your age. You'll have a built-in friend at school.
Would we have actually seen her at school?
Sure, possibly, yeah.
We never see her there, even in the background.
Well, we probably should have. That's a good point. We probably should have thrown her in here and there.
I really wish she had been in Game On, but I guess I understand why it had to be Molly with Libby and Darryl.
Well, that one was such a production heavy lift. It kind of had to be one that we could insert anywhere.
June must pristinely be placed in the show.
Speaking of games, kind of, if Andrea, Davenport, and June were to meet, like, what would their dynamic be like, do you think? Like, would they get along with coding or like anything else?
It'd be fun to play the misdirect, you would assume, maybe, just based on sometimes how Andrea comes across, that they wouldn't click. And I think part of the fun would be that they would. They speak that language I don't think the rest of their friend group really speaks.
Sure.
So I could see them kind of geeking out together.
Her journey was going from superficial to increasingly authentic. And there's no character who's more authentic than June. Like, June has no artifice. June is what you see is what you get with June. She's not going to sugarcoat her opinions. She's not going to hide what she's thinking.
The unbridled truth.
Maybe there would have been a story of June helping Andrea get over that final hump of becoming an authentic person. I'm not sure that would have worked, but that's sort of off the top of my head kind of thought.
Something to think about, yeah.
The thing we used to do in the writer's room, we'd put character names in a hat and then draw 2 character names and say, okay, here's Pete and Scratch. Come up with a scene for them. What happens?
How would you describe me? Hungry, blue.
I love that, yeah.
And as a ghost, too.
I watch him sleep sometimes. This one isn't directly related to June, but I'm just going to ask it anyway because I'm curious. So I remember when Double Darryl in Trouble was new, the director of that episode was talking about how it was based on their experience, being neurodivergent. When making Darryl, was any specific kind of like neurodivergent condition planned? Like, does he have ADHD? Is there like an explanation?
I think Darryl is ADHD. We were never specific about that, but that was always sort of in the back of my mind.
Got it. Okay.
He exhibits a lot of the ADHD characteristics.
Headcanons are popular, right? People headcanon Molly is ADHD. People headcanon so-and-so. and I'm always like, like it'd be cool if these characters were autistic, but I think June's like that's the big one, right? Like we should try others.
Right. I think Molly and Darryl are different kinds of ADHD, but they're both ADHD.
Ollie.
There's the whole episode. Yeah, there's the whole episode where Molly and Scratch are, constantly getting distracted by things.
I think Molly's a lot more functional than Darryl is in that way. But I think there's a case to be made there for sure. I'm not an expert on the diagnosis, so I'm not going to venture into it. But yes, Darryl ADHD.
Oh yeah.
Yippee.
Hello, Scratch. I'm June. I have lots of questions about ghosts.
When Scratch was introduced to June and welcomed to Necrocomic-Con, clearly they got along quickly. Was there ever plans to make June and Scratch's friendship more prevalent than what's other than seen in the grand gesture with June testing Scratch's ectoplasm?
I think for sure. I think in the third season we would have seen more interaction between those people. It's one of my big regrets about the show.
I'm giggling because it has probably one of Bob's all-time favorite lines on the show.
As an experiment, I'd like to maybe touch his eye goop a little.
Suanne ad-libbed the I'd love to touch his eye goop.
I goop a little.
Yeah.
Suanne was bringing so many fun little flourishes to June. I would have loved the chance to do even more.
This is a complete tangent, but I watched As We See It, and it's so funny to watch that show and hear Suanne say all these very not Disney appropriate lines.
Right.
How am I supposed to
Hey,
get
Violet,
a
we
boyfriend
need
and
to
f***ing get
one
married if I'm in the kitchen
conversation.
squirting mustard on sandwiches? Violet,
that word.
Violet, watch your language.
I can't not hear June saying this. Just like I can't not hear Dana Snyder as Scratch now. My thing is I never watched Aqua Teen Hunger Force, so like I just hear Scratch.
So my second question is, when developing June, how did you ensure that she was accurately portraying autism?
We worked with a group called Respectability, and they help productions, include people of various disabilities through their shows. We met a woman named Ava Zhaolin Riegelhaupt, and she was fantastic. There was a lot of inspiration in her for June.
Yeah, we actually based part of June on her.
She gets very excited and animated when she talks about things, and she was wholeheartedly on board with the idea of bringing in an autistic character. We actually auditioned her. Suanne beat her by a nose because she's a professional actress. But Ava brought there's so much of Ava in June, and she would give us very, very detailed notes, very supportive notes on every episode with June.
Yeah. So what we would do is, just so you know, we would send both, outline scripts and storyboards to her to get feedback, to make sure that things felt authentic to her experience and also what they know from their, research. So, for example, I think when June hears Junior crying,
What are you supposed to do with babies?
and she does that little, sensory, auditory sensory thing. I remember she really liked that moment.
She was super supportive.
You see that like crawling, like the electricity almost like rising up towards her ears, and then she like covers.
It's such a
her
good
ears.
visual.
I love that.
Honestly.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
it's so good.
We also had, a tremendous amount of our crew who identify as autistic or ADHD or, a number of other characteristics that they felt like they were bringing something of June to the story. And other characters. The fact that people see, that Molly, acts a certain way, or you see things like a lot of us who made her, we're putting ourselves in her, So
that's kind of what I said. That's kind of what I said at the beginning of my autism video. I talked about how, a lot of the people that make these shows are neurodivergent, so it's not surprising that a lot of those traits make their way into these shows.
Yeah, and that's what I like about this show specifically, and a lot of other Disney shows too, is because you can tell that the writers and you can tell that the animators and the producers, they put all like what they like about themselves and also what they think the character would be like into that character. And that's what I really like about June and some other characters in other shows.
When we interview people for a show, and especially on Molly, we did this. We asked them to tell us their life story in 5 minutes.
And not their resume.
We don't want to hear your resume. We've got your resume. We're not interested in the resume. Tell us who you are. How many siblings do you have? Where did you grow up? Did you have a favorite pet? Do you play any instruments? Anything, anything you feel like telling us. And part of that is we just want to get to know people to make a cohesive crew where, it feels like a family. But also there's a slight self-serving part of that of, oh, you're from a small town? Molly lives in a small town. You're ADHD? Well, her little brother. And there's that allows people to start to feel like, oh, this is a show for me where I can sink my hooks into something that is authentic for me and bring myself into the show.
Yeah, that's the thing that Bob was talking about, right? Like as you get more specific with something, you oddly get more relatable, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think that, first of all, just watching, I think the Molly McGee community respond so well to this particular representation, I think has, as many of the areas of representation, it just reminds us of a couple things. One, of just how thirsty people are to see themselves represented in media and the content they watch.
It's long awaited.
And how important it is that we reflect the world that we're in, right?
Listen, there is actually a quote that Walt Disney once said that I use this in my one video. I love this quote so much. So Walt Disney said, "We have created characters and animated them in the dimension of depth, revealing through them, through our perturbed world, that the things we have in common far outnumber and outweigh those that divide us." Basically saying that the animated characters are parallel to the real world and how people act.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely, that's a great quote, by the way. We see how much we are connected.
Yeah.
That's
why a lot of people find comfort in cartoon characters, because it's sort of like seeing a little bit of yourself portrayed on to media, which is, hasn't really been done before until in recent years.
Bob's going to roll his eyes at this. I'm going to pontificate for a second. Right. But I think one of the things that is problematic is that, yes, he's already sleeping, is the othering of people. We tend to other, like, oh, they're different than us, they're whatever, I don't get it, I don't whatever. And one of the things that is so great about storytelling like this is a chance to help people understand. It builds empathy, it puts people in the skin of a character. So through June or through Darryl or even through Molly's own, behavior, they see like, oh, I get it. I get it. And, I think, wow, that's such an important thing.
Yes.
For people to be able to see themselves, and because then other people also see them, and it opens understanding.
Yeah, I don't really have a question. I think in general, I mean, of course, my YouTube channel, kind of the most popular stuff I've done has all been about representation, because I think all of that just is so important, and continuing to show different kinds of representation. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw any of the episodes of Primos yet, but like I forget the whole family tree of it. It's because it's 12 kids. The older brother and the little brother is probably also dyslexic, which I thought was super cool. Another one of the cousins is deaf and has a hearing aid and does ASL. I'm like, I love stuff like that. It's so cool. It's so just validating for people to see stuff like that and be like, hey, that's me. That's just like me. And the people who complain about that are missing the point. And this show, and and so many of these other shows that have come and gone before and after, and will continue to, have just been so good for that. And I think, I just can only hope that Disney continues letting people tell their authentic stories, because that's all just so wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, from your mouth to Bob Iger's ears.
Yes. Bob, I know you're listening. I missed meeting you because I was at baby care one time.
I mean, I do feel like it's a strange response. I will say from some very small corners of the internet. There's almost a feeling of like showing someone who's different than they are somehow take something away from them, and that's
never understood.
That's just ridiculous. I mean, what a strange. I think if anything, what we're all trying to talk about is just how important we all are as individuals, and the things that we bring, and the unique gifts and talents that we bring. And nature has a purpose a lot of the time in creating the diversity in our world.
So Gas had a question. He said, over the years, we've seen crew members show off early sketch designs of the characters. June is no exception. What was the process for choosing that final version of June Chen, and why did some of the accessories in the early versions not make it to the final cut?
Boy, I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, here's the truth of it. Justin Rodriguez, who is our character designer, creates these beautiful characters, and he would always give us sort of, this option A, B, C kind of a thing, and this one has this and this, and we would talk about, I really like how her ponytail does this, and I really like this. And some of it comes down to, when it comes to accessories, even it'd be like, that's a pain in the butt in animation to make sure that it tracks correctly, like the infamous...
Oh yeah, like the mole.
Molly's mole. Molly's mole. It's like, we can't keep this in the final show.
Even Molly's bracelet. Wow,
that was a dumb idea. That damn bracelet.
Because the rig actually has the bracelet on both hands, and they have to remember to turn it off depending on how it moves, and anyway, it's a whole thing. So sometimes that was it, but honestly, I think part of it was it's very subjective, and we would look at it and go, I think that's adorable, and it resonates to us, and we would just feel an emotional affinity to that particular design.
Not to get too deep with it, but it's kind of like seeing your child be birthed. Like when they're in the womb, you have all these notions of what they're going to be and expectations, and then they're there, and you're like, oh, that's them. That's my child. Yeah. And when you see June, when we see these characters and Justin has nailed it, it's like, that one's June.
And then married with, Sue-Ann's performance, and then the boarding and animation bringing to physicality to life, and suddenly now you've got a whole being, and it's really remarkable.
Yeah,
it is truly.
It's like okay, try to picture in your head what would a little girl who has autism named June look like. You pull up a bunch of different designs, and you just go and point out which one's like, that's the one.
And then everyone just draws her as the yippee creature meme.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Disregard the design. This is canon.
Exactly. My final question. This is just a stupid one that I wanted to ask because I like Disney. I have so much Disney park memorabilia. It's an ongoing joke with me. I think Laura said it in the live stream where
Defining Disney in the chat says, if the characters in the show had a favorite Walt Disney World ride, what would it be and why?
I like the Country Bear Jamboree.
That is one of my favorite shows at Disney. Like, oh my god, that sounds just like Libby just saying I like the Country Bear. So I just took that, ran with it. So my question was, if June had a favorite Disney World ride, would it be the Country Bear Jamboree?
Sure.
Yes.
Why not?
Yippee.
You know what? I don't know. I mean,
she's upset that the Sum of All Thrills is gone.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of me is wondering, is it Space Mountain? But maybe
that is also one of my favorite rides.
I think she'd vibe with Cosmic Rewind. As I've mentioned before, I totally headcanon her as like a roller coaster nerd because I feel like that would fall in so much with her loving STEM and engineering and all of that.
So maybe Incredicoaster, is that what you're getting at?
Incredicoaster? Well, maybe. I mean, I don't know. There's some more thrilling roller coasters down the street over at the Berry Farm.
Remember the card we gave to the crew? We custom designed these cards that had a beautiful Walt Disney quote. I can't remember which quote it was. It was something about, imagination is the window through which we bring the world to life.
There are some really good Walt Disney quotes I've always read online.
We picked really the best one. I can't remember which one exactly, but we picked the best one. Then he opened the card and it said, also, somebody should make a show called The Ghost and Molly McGee.
Unfortunately, he didn't specifically say to give it a third season. But...
He was a visionary, but he didn't see that far.
It's like Epcot. He said make it happen, but never really specifically how they were going to go forward with it. If June had a specific music type she would listen to, what would it be?
Well, it has to be Rob Cantor, right?
The way you juggle while you hoverboard like it's no big deal. The way you bite.
And you just validated the entire autistic community by saying that.
Yes. Yes.
You're welcome for asking that.
Right. And I guess that wraps it up pretty much. I'd like to thank Bill and Bob for being here for this.
Well, thank you for having us.
Well, you guys
it was nice talking to you guys.
A pleasure as always.
Keeping the Molly flame alive.